Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this professional learning opportunity. I am Scott Mathias from NCEA, and I will be your host today. Just a few housekeeping notes as people are joining. If you have questions during the presentation, feel free to use the Q&A or chat windows. We will be monitoring the questions and will try to answer them all in the allotted time. After today's webinar, I will email everyone a link to the recording, as well as an online survey. Once you fill out the survey, a certificate of completion for the webinar will be emailed to you. Today's webinar, Building a Flourishing Catholic School Music Program, is being led by Bruce Ludwig, Director of Music and Organist at the Cathedral of St. Paul in Birmingham, Alabama. Before I turn it over to our panelists, let us begin in prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Creator God, you hear us, our words in prayer, our silent thoughts and pleas, and each note or melody we sing and play. May our praises today connect with heaven and unite our hearts with the sound of eternity. Lord, may the gifts of our voices and melodies of our instruments move with the work of your Holy Spirit. May we bring light into dark places, restore hope and vision to all who are oppressed, and well-being and health to all those who suffer. Today, Lord, we give you our worship. May it be a platform for you, Father God, to teach our lives afresh and build your church. In Jesus' name, amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Bruce, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Scott, and I appreciate the invitation. I'm so glad I took you up on your offer to pray, because that was much better than what I had prepared. So what a beautiful prayer and a great way to start us out today. Well, I'm joining you here from my house in Birmingham. My wife is a Catholic school educator and a music educator. And so we've been talking about this a little, but I'm just honored for the opportunity today to look at this. I'm an adult convert, and so that very thing, I had no idea that I would be in any place like this today. I also grew up in a very small town and did not really think of music as a career until very late in high school. And so all of this has just been a tremendous surprise in the best way and a blessing. And so I hope that you understand that many of the things we'll talk about today were things that I had to take a risk to do, and really just kind of put out into the deep. And so I hope that this talk encourages you to do the same. I want to first apologize. I had a cold last week that looked like it was going away, and then of course I lost my voice at the tail end. And so I hope you can hear me. If not, please feel free to um, in the comments at the end, and I'll ask me to clarify anything you like. Of course, most of all, along with my teachers along the way, who are really the reason that I'm here in any sense at all. I want to thank Puerto Torres for all of the good work that they do. And so I would encourage you, if you're not familiar with the organization, to be a little bit more familiar with it. So I love the name, even for Puerto Torres, young singers, basically. But their mission statement is so wonderful. Puerto Torres' mission is to evangelize singers through the medium of sacred music, encourage educational and musical enrichment for students, steward a spirit of liturgical appreciation, and keep our future Catholic leaders engaged in their faith for years to come. They host choral festivals and masses all around the country, and these are mostly for grades 4 through 12, but of course they support the entire age from old to young, right? And sacred music sung at these festivals, I can attest to, because I attended these pretty religiously with my choir in St. Louis, Missouri when I worked there, have a great mix of everything, and they always are in spaces that are really exciting to sing in. I know the Cathedral Basilica in St. Louis was a great example of that for us. Um, and so on, and the kids just come alive. So if you're on the fence, you should definitely do that with your kids. One of the really neat things is that, especially now that we have these technological things available like today, is they offer webinars like today and other professional development opportunities, which are wonderful. I grew up in a town of 5,000 people, and so these sort of things democratize information and learning for people, which is wonderful. And it's a huge positive in how things work today. Their website is pcchoirs.org. And we're all, I think, glad that festivals for Prairie are coming back, just like our performances, are now public again. The last few years have been trying, I know, for all of us. And so please know that I know the difficulties you're going through, but I hope today is a great opportunity for us to look at this stuff. I'm adjusting my tea here as we go. And that we can look at these things and think that maybe the whole last couple of years was an example for us to re-examine things and start anew to improve ourselves and our programs and all of that. So Prairie is a huge help with that. I love the whole festival thing that we did in St. Louis, and it's funny when I read the mission statement, because it's very much what the children's school at my own place was designed to do. It's not just music. It's the primary thing is to get people to heaven and to help them to understand why we do the liturgy, why we owe this to God, why we owe it to ourselves really to do it and participate in it. So with that in mind, and Scott's wonderful prayer starting us out, let's get started here. I will warn you, there's a lot of text in this. I'm not an expert at PowerPoint, but I did my best. And of course, I'm going to leave you plenty of time to make comments, suggestions, or snide remarks at the end about it. But anyhow, I hope that something of this is helpful for you in your choirs, your school children, and in general, just our own work together to get to heaven. So I will try with great trepidation share my screen here to you, and we'll get started, okay? Okay, well, here we are. So I love this title, which I'm not good with, this sort of slick communication thing. So I had a little bit of help with it. I think you can guess who might have helped. But I hope that we think about this, building a flourishing Catholic school music program. This in itself is something that's really worthy of a lot of attention because, of course, Catholic schools are getting fewer in number. And I think one of the really important things for Catholic school, and I say this as a Catholic school parent, is to figure out how we're going to sort of project our school and make it attractive to people who might be looking for a school or questioning why. And so when we have something special to offer, and I hope your administrators look this way too, that makes the school more attractive. And I know my wife's school, that was one of the reasons that they wanted to start a music program too. And I think it's doing great work there. But the whole point of this talk is to try to look at this and find a way to make this all work in the light of what we have, what we know, and where we can go. So this is something I want us to think about at the beginning here, which is this wonderful little Latin chant I want us to listen to. This is an introit that happens twice in the church here, as you can see. It's very brief. I'm going to reveal myself as a dork, but I actually sang this at my speech at my brother's wedding in Poland. So I'm putting myself out here today like I was then, except I'm not going to sing because I can't. I had planned to. So here's a wonderful recording, very brief, from the Abbey of Saint-Landry in Belgium. If you could, read this text in front of us and ponder that as you listen to their beautiful singing. I'm going to stop it before the versicle. So I know chant may not be to everyone's taste, and so we'll talk about a number of different styles today, but more just how this all works. But Aaron and I, we have 4 boys as I'm adjusting my hair. So what's left of it, and they're wonderful kids, but we always are looking for peace. And of course, the chant is very helpful in fostering that, I think, for many of us. And we'll talk about it some today in this presentation. But this text, and that, of course, the chant is most about the text, to me is always a singular text. As I do a bad job of doing this text a lot of times, but we need to always look toward God. I mean, all of our failures in life, I feel like, are a result of us looking too much to ourselves. We have to fight some to get things done. And of course, God gives us many good things to help us, but we have to find his face. And so I hope that our talk today is helpful in making that happen. And this chant is such a beautiful way, I think, to start this talk.
Bruce, sorry, this is Scott. Sorry to
Yes.
break in. Just had a couple comments in the chat
Sure.
about the sound clip.
Okay.
And I guess share computer sound has to be turned on
No. Okay.
before the clip is shared.
Okay. Let me go back. I'm gonna have to get us out of. Where is that is that option accessible on the top menu?
I believe when we tested it the other day, it was there by the.
Sorry. Here we go. I'm trying to get out of full screen on the PowerPoint here. But it's not the PowerPoint that's the issue, right? That's right. Sorry. So, Scott, how do we get to that option again?
Well, someone said unshare and reshare.
Yeah.
But then we have others that are wanting to move along.
Yes, I think it's
time constraints. So.
And I'm happy to share the link to that.
PowerPoint.
Yeah, so we can
Great.
add to the PowerPoint. So thank you. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the moderation. I just want to prioritize whatever people want here. So good. The next thing. All right. So there are so many demands that we have. All of the things listed, as you can see here. So much, I think, of being a good professional in any field, and in the arts, of course, we get very emotional about things, I think, and all is trying to economize in a positive way. That has a negative connotation, I know, many times. You're cheating different things, but no, finding common ground to make this work. And so we want to think about this as what is really important. And that's why the chant that didn't play, I'm sorry. That's why I put that in there is ultimately, if we keep God in the mix and at the pinnacle of things, then the other stuff sort of sorts itself out. And so that, I think, is an invitation when we consider the school mass. I mean, and rather than look at it as something that is onerous or an obligation that you perhaps do not want, whether because you would rather do something else with your time or you just don't feel competent to do it, try to make it something that is an opportunity. And I think that, again, that will help things. Okay. So, first of all, I think that, as I mentioned with a Catholic school, what is important with this, we have to think of our identity. And you're not trying to sell a product. You're trying to help someone fall in love. You're trying to help someone desire good. And so think about the things on this slide. It's a picture, of course, from my own home territory here now. So, but I thought it was beautiful. Late afternoon, maybe when you're getting out of school, some similar pictures. This contemplate the face of God in the Blessed Sacrament, the chief mode of Jesus Christ here on earth, in sacred Scripture, the magisterial teaching of the Church, in sacred art, of course, and then especially in the people around us. I know some people, we tend to struggle with that, but rather than find people in our lives annoying at times, we need to understand them as people that the Lord puts in our lives for a reason, and see that as an opportunity to not only get to be better people, but to know Him better. So let's talk about how we make this happen. First of all, this is a team effort. I enjoy time alone. My wife can probably say that. I had a smaller family growing up, and we had a lot of that. And so, but it would be a huge mistake to think that you could do this on your own. Any good that I've done is because of my teachers, my parents, all the people around us, choir directors, especially for me as a kid. We want to look to our friends on staff, and you may be laughing, oh, maybe these people you're listing are not my friends. Well, we need to work on that. They need to be on our side. And on our side, I mean a general way that looking, again, to get people to heaven, they're already looking toward that. But how can we come together and make that happen? And it also has an imperative for you that we have to help them, okay? Building friendship, the important part of getting started. That is going to be a huge thing. So many things we can do. All the knowledge we have, as St. Paul says, is no good without love. And I'm so blessed. Every job that I've had, my coworkers have been wonderful people, but they've also been people that I had to get to know, to understand, and they have been the kind of people that did that with me too, because I have lots of rough edges as well. Another thing is planning time. Of course, what we give time to in our lives says a lot about what's important. I'm only asking for you to give 15 minutes here to look at the Mass texts. So we're talking a lot of ways in how to make the school Mass work here. So these are just preliminary things that will work in the rest of the talk. But you should think about these texts because, again, the Word of God, is alive and it converts people. And so we have to trust that. We have to make sure there's not a failure of faith on our part to do that. Plus, it's a load off of our shoulders. It's not all us. Look at these texts. Take just a minimal amount of time to make this happen. And think of repertoire. We all have things from our shared experience in life that help with this. I think if you make that a priority, then you'll see that, especially if you're Catholic and you attend Mass regularly, I hope you do. Even from Sundays, we begin in our lives. These texts are a part of us, so listen carefully. Encourage your kids before Mass to listen carefully too, because then you'll have a chance. Okay. More. So Father runs things. This is the reality of Catholic life, but that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. I mean, that the heart will make sure the Church can be a great blessing. We should remember to pray for them. The Q hymn. See, and even if he doesn't say what's coming up for school masses, at least they'll think, oh gosh, I haven't thought about the homily thing this Thursday. Maybe I should go do that tonight, whatever. You can ask for songs that relate. I cut out a comment in here, although I'm recorded now too, so this will be public record too. But of course, you kind of want to know your audience. But even if they have something that you don't think is appropriate one way or the other, then that's fine. And it's great for us all to be able to share. Of course, that's part of being human. And they will hopefully have these ideas of texts so that the things we mentioned in the last slide, picking the music, if he says something particular, then, I want to preach a series on the Eucharist over the next 3 school masses because it seems like people don't believe in this anymore. Well, then obviously you want to look at Psalm 34. Look at that. Taste and see the goodness of the Lord, whatever. Just simple things like that, pull things together. If they change the homily, it's not your problem. God knows you try to do the right thing, and they probably realize that too. Reach out to your religion and grade level teachers. This is so important. In the Catholic school where I worked in St. Louis, I found that there were a few teachers that were so helpful with this. Maybe not in the music side, but it was helpful to talk to them about what they were covering in class and think about what I want to do. And again, this apostolate of friendship is so important. For the parish music director, if you are just the school music director, in my current job, we don't have an attached school. And of course, I'm the director. I have a quarter-time assistant, and it's fairly minimal, mostly to help me out on weekends and with rehearsals and big pieces. But, it's important as much as we can to unify the approach from a school and parish perspective. This kind of continuity, I think, helps clarify for people what's going on. On a more elemental level, as the sub-point says, the person who's the parish music director will appreciate you just reaching out. Even if there's something that you don't, agree on or whatever, it's nice to know that we're not opposing. This is so important too, if you can, to coordinate repertoires if there are 2 of you. We'll talk about this later in the talk, of course. If it's a combined position, that's one of the opportunities is to do that. But if it's not, then it needs to be a priority because, if you're working on in the classroom, then they're going to go to, children's choir rehearsal at 3, knowing more of the music, and so you can accomplish more. That's a huge gift if that's possible. These animations I was having too much fun with today. So more non-negotiables. So we put the Pope on here. So if you don't want to listen to me, listen to Pope Francis here. He would like for you to look ahead too. So plan these if you can. Of course, this is a great opportunity. It's the end of the year to put this in your head. This year for me, there were some changes midstream, and I have to confess that was extremely challenging for me. I had never had to deal with that before, and it's been difficult. The more you can do in the summer to just set yourself, even if you don't know who you're working with in the fall. I have this issue constantly with my choirs. We'll lose people, gain people, and so everything I plan is sort of, it's a good mental exercise. The USCCB calendar link that's there is huge. Now it's in Spanish too. The little life hack, if you have bilingual parishes, is all you have to do is change readings in the URL to lectoras, and it's there, which was, I think, 3 or 4 years ago they did that, which probably saved a lot of people's lives. Consult with pastor. He will help you too if he decides to do, votive mass of the precious blood. I'm probably never going to have. But, on Thursday, instead of the readings of the day, then, it'll help you guys work together. All right? Good. So now how do we make this happen? All right. So in the classroom, this is one of my favorite places ever. This is the Adoration Chapel, the Cathedral Basilica in St. Louis, designed by Tiffany. It's very modest, I think. But no, the Lord deserves the best. And it's a very peaceful place in that huge building where they have hosted many Pueri festivals. I think you got to start with prayer and end with prayer. This is the difference between a public school and a Catholic school. Plus, it reminds kids that, Mrs. Z is not the person really in charge here. God is. It's an imperative on us teaching too. Remind them that we're doing this for God and for the salvation of souls. Use the liturgical prayers too. The Hail Mary isn't strictly, you're not listed in this, but of course the Our Father is. We do that with our rehearsals. We just begin with an Our Father, and we invoke the saints. In our case, the patron saint of music, Saint Cecilia, and the parish patron, who's also the patron, Saint Paul. Maybe whoever the saint of the day is, if we're feeling exotic, whatever. And then at the end, a Hail Mary and the same. Most important of these, I think, especially if you feel like you don't know the kids in your class as well as you would like, or you want to understand them better as people, is ask for intentions. They will appreciate that. It helps them see things. It may expose some division at time, but if that's the case, that's a teachable moment as well. And of course, there will be some comic relief like my last one, and you just talk about the realm. Sports is a different realm. We're in sports culture, so we have to deal with this too. I have my allegiances too. Thankfully, I'm here as a West Virginia fan in Alabama, so no one bothers me too much. Anyhow, think about these things. The intentions are huge, I think, for kids, making them feel a part of you and your class and the school, and get to know their classmates. What about the music? All right, warm-ups. Super important. We all kind of have neglected them and felt the burden of that in the past. Don't do it. Stretches. Okay, so this is interesting. This whole thing with the Ave Maria Hail Mary. This goes way back to texts that we have from the Middle Ages when they were talking about what to do with certain things we'll talk about later, maybe about the Psalms. Have them hold them that long. It reinforces the whole Catholic ethos of things. This is also interesting too with Kodai, if some of you are certified in that or sympathetic toward that method, very big on singing, then those pitches I list are the ones that he suggests, which you'll notice are basically a pentatonic setup that world music and folk music use. Sorry, I'm going to try to eke out some singing here, but that'll be a good invitation for some of your priests, maybe, right? So, easy warm up. Sol, sol, mi, sol, right? We need to use Kerwin signs. Sol, sol, mi, sol. With them, the Lord be with you, and so on. And like I say, different pitches. Every once in a while, you get a wild tenor in there. Most of the time, though, they're baritones. I find a G or an A as sort of the standard. In this case, would be the sol. It seems to work best. You want to avoid people with a really low voice going too low. It's hard for the women, especially in that case, to work that out in the congregation. And of course, for trebles, you're going to have an issue too. The fun game could say, what do you think about this? And so on. But the preface tone, right, is, I spelled it out here, do, re, mi, re, although it's usually written differently, but the Lord be with you and with your spirit, and so on and so forth. And if we see those whole steps like that, often if we think about choral music, we tend to flat those. If you have 3 in a row like that, so do that, use that, little things. These are just little breadcrumbs along the trail here. So we're trying to get through a lot of material today. And you could even choose a warm up that sets a part of the, you do a series on the Gloria, because there's like words that they may not understand English yet or whatever. Or you can talk about, phrasing with the, we adore you, we glorify you, and so forth. Things like that. Use those texts to your advantage. Oh, okay. I like I said, I had fun in the animations. This is the origami. There you go. All right. So it's school, so we need to have fun, right? What about the music? All right, psalmody. So I threw this one in here because it would be tragic for me not to mention this. The Psalms I mentioned, I think it's so important for us to use these as a primary part of the text that we use. People can't argue with the text of the Psalms. It's not our text, it's the text of the church. You just say, sorry, what do you want me to use? And we see in the Psalms our Savior Jesus Christ. And so we need to use these and familiarize these with people. People recall these in dark moments, we think about all the wars going on in the world now. I mean, it's interesting because some of the people that now have Twitter that are in the trenches, they're posting these online. There's your proof. Um, Sometimes we have these in our missalette or whatever, but also you might use some of the collections I mentioned here in the notes. Psalm tones are great. We joke about this in my group too. We like pick an object, a verb, and something. Um, like, we love hamburgers, they are delicious, therefore we eat them. So we have a cause effect, and we sang the mind red tune just to them. And they have fun, ha, whatever. But of course, you could use a psalm text, right? And the other thing is, too, is the kids, of course, are like sponges as young children. And so they absorb these much quicker, I think, than we do most of the time. And so if you teach them well, just to memorize those, and of course, when you look at these texts or you look at a response for a psalm, for example, you want to think, and you can vary the order of this, but it's like we always joke in my group, you don't want to be like Cookie Monster, eat everything at one time. Break it into little pieces so you boy, right? Memorize the tone, say the text, or just say the text first. Say the text first, memorize the tone, try to combine them, and then things will work. Okay. What about the music? Okay. Um, so this is a fun one. So this is just chant, sung speech. The Salve is hard. The Salve Regina, the Regina Caeli that's here is not as hard, I don't think. And so when we have this, I think it's important to think about this. I'm not going to play the video because I don't want to. We're a little behind, and I don't want to do it. But it's funny. It's a bunch of 3-year-olds that are related to a famous Catholic music guy now. We're singing the Regina Caeli, and we do this at bedtime in our family a lot of times. And little kids can pick these up. And I know we need to understand. We'll talk about this in a second. But the important thing, it's just like baptism. You don't withhold baptism because a kid doesn't understand it. It's the best gift you can give them. This music, the music of the church, is stuff you want to give them. Kids get this. Adults, we have hard time, especially musicians. I feel like we think, oh, what's this crazy notation? How do I read this? And we'll talk about that in a second. Maybe if we're going to get to the next slide. There we go. Oh, paper airplane. Oh, my favorite. I'm dying to use that. Okay. So think about keeping the chant in the chant notation. It's really funny because we bring in a lot of couples for in-person wedding consultations, and that's more of an evangelization thing for my current job as the director of music at the cathedral. But I like kind of picking through what they say about the music they hear, especially the parishioners, but also if they visited or they wouldn't get married there. The people always say that are non-musicians, they can visualize all of the music better if it's in chant notation. I'm just going to put that out there. It's hard for some of us. I know it was for me too. I was not familiar with that. It took in my late 20s before I really felt comfortable. Kerwin signs, gotta do Kerwin signs. You ladies probably better at this than most of us guys. I always feel so uncoordinated in Kerwin signs in front of my kids, but it's there. This is a great link that I'm posting here. That is a chart that gives the Kerwin sign and then the chant notation equivalents of pitch. But I mean, you can apply it. You could just consider all the the clef C and do that too. It's really cool and very useful. All right, I love it. Oh, this is my favorite part of children's school every week. I'm an infamously bad drawer, but this is fun because we have this umbrella to show the Latin 5 pure vowels. So we want to think, especially in the cathedral, we need a very bright sound. It's odd. It's a very dark room for being so resonant, but it's resonant. And the bass frequencies resonate, which is odd in this kind of acoustic. But we have to think of everything, or even very in the mask. And so we think about these in that same umbrella. And I put the nota bene in there. I know some of you are going to have issues trying to use Latin. I understand that. But if there's a way, encourage your pastor if he's opposed or whoever, or maybe you're opposed personally. I mean, it's not an ideological thing outside of this country. I mean, there are very liberal places in Europe that use chant all the time. and very conservative ones that don't use it at all. So, the point is, it's a great tool for the kids. Latin is also, it's because of those pure vowels. English is just such a crazy language, especially if you have Hispanic families in your parish and all bilingual families like we do in ours here. It's helpful. Okay, so we do have a lot more vernacular chant resources. I apologize. I meant to put in some of the new Spanish resources into this talk, and I did not. Um, but I wanted to point out one particular resource. The others are listed at the end in the credits page, I think, or maybe I put them already. Don't remember. But Adam Bartlett with Source and Summit has done great work over the past few years. And this is me in better voice. Well, maybe I can. Well, I may not be able to share this because of the sound stuff that we're having. I'm sorry. Um, Let me see. Let me do it this way. That's good. Oops. Sorry. Can you hear me? Anyhow, I'm not sure if that worked or not, but oops, I thought I shut myself off. I didn't. But the other reason I'm going to go back real fast is that this is a great platform is because if you are a split person that has school and parish responsibilities, this will enable you to go ahead and uh, you can plan liturgies and all through his engine and all. It's really cool. It's a great development. Who's singing? Cantor, choir, all these things. We need to think about this. Very important with repertoire selections. Well, we had school mass 4 days a week in my job before. Um, I mean, it was like first, second, third, and then fourth, fifth, and then six, seven, eight. And so, of course, the stuff we did on the little kids was much different than the later stuff. But this was very interesting because, you need to know what people can be attracted to. If you're able to teach toward it, little kids think this stuff, cool, foreign languages, sixth graders, no, not cool. But, middle school kids, everything is not cool to them. So don't project onto the kids. I struggle with this too. And then liturgical needs and all that sort of thing. We talked about that some earlier. Okay. Pedagogical stuff, very important. Find these things, common ground. And if you teach intervallic singing, which I hope you do, I'm like, oh, I always sing this, nobody knows the trouble. This is just a name minor sixth, right? Whatever. Or here comes the bride, of course, although we're not supposed to use that. Eyes of Texas, for any of you Texans out there, all right, or sorry, A&M fans. Anyhow, builds literacy, minds kids. We're all in this together. Look at this repertoire, find skills to teach, because that's what you want to do is economize by teaching this music. I mean, teaching a concert is a very negative connotation, but this is a holistic way of looking at this. Do this in a way. You don't have to do all this stuff or all sacred music, but you can do it in there. Many of these songs will help us through, these vocal things. We can, encourage them to hum or lip trill through the melody to help, bring this stuff together so that they just do this by habit. And teach the literacy, major, minor. If you're really fancy, and teach modal stuff, and so on. Okay. All right. This is here to save you time. We want these children to fall in love with Jesus Christ. We want them to love the church. We want them to love one another. You could do much of this music, like I list the Jesus Remember Me. I'll put a link in there, but we don't need to hear that necessarily. You do that in front during Lent. Okay, the Taizé refrains are great because they're so short, designed for people on pilgrimage, right? Adoration, learn those for the exposition and for benediction, and so on. This helps teach a concert and liturgy. use classroom time to teach these things, right? New mass setting of combined job, that's a huge win. We don't have that ability necessarily here, although with my children's school, of course, I try to teach them what we're working on. Solfege, you can use drone, as I mentioned, that's a great way to kind of spice it up. And use these things. We do this at Coral Stages Cross for Good Friday. It's a huge help for us because, inevitably something will kind of tank, whether it's huge or minor, in the stations. And then we can kind of look at that and think, okay, this is going to be bad maybe on Good Friday if we don't fix this. And then things are fine in time. All right, here we go. Practical considerations. So, of course, this is all about the liturgy, right? Consider the building, right? So my kids attend St. Rose Academy in Birmingham. It's run by the Nashville Dominicans, one of the few schools that they own, so it's kind of unique in that regard. But it's in a house that someone donated years ago. Big Victorian house, but still there's not really a big oratory for everything. So we have school mass and a gym. It's really hard to make good musical results there. And I know, having helped out many times there are school masses, but maybe if you have a band program, help them, instruments, huge help in a room like that. At a time, maybe getting rehearsed with the teachers, whatever. If you have a church or a chapel, so many of the things that we do at the cathedral here in Birmingham, we do because it just makes sense. If we have this wonderful acoustic, why would we do this? We want to play to things. And because of that effort, which goes back 30 years to my predecessors, the people sing really well because they're comfortable with it, and so on. I really have an issue, though, with one thing, which is where people tend to project ideology onto kids. They think that they can't sing something simple like that Regina Cheli that we put there earlier. But they give this stuff that has these ridiculous ranges. Kids shouldn't be singing down here a chest voice. It's very unhealthy for them. They have vocal problems, nodules even. I mean, don't do that. I mean, so if there's a way that you can resist that and encourage them to something better, just say, hey, I'm just trying to teach the kids things that help their voices. And it doesn't need to be like a Latin chant like Regina Cheli. It can be anything. But think narrow range, try to help them with that. That's part of the age appropriate thing that you need to look at. All school mass, I mean, you could do something a little bit more adventuresome because you got everyone there, but especially if you have little kids or whatever in your class, consider those pedagogical things very important for them because we want to instill in them a love of music, right? The cantors are going to be huge helps for you if you have a school mass. I mean, we always started the year with adults, or we would pair an adult with a kid or whatever, but then I would work with them as available, during planning periods or whatever. Hey, guys, let's come and work for 15, 20 minutes here on this music. And we would be able to go through a good bit of stuff. It was really interesting because, of course, I always thought, as a total failure, there were mistakes all the time in math. And then, out of the blue, two of them sent me messages and said, oh, yeah, I'm majoring in music. I really was kind of didn't care about music. And then I realized, if I can cantor for school mass, I can probably do more. And then it became this thing. And so that was really cool. It was very edifying because I figured that, my job was to do my job, but that was really a neat benefit. And I'm sure many of you have had those similar things. Work with them in a group, in a pool like that. Everyone has bad days sometimes, sometimes it's just, it doesn't work. And so you do it in a group, that helps. They support each other and hopefully will become friends. I know many of mine were. And are now in my children's school too. It's really neat. You can assign little kids, especially if they're prepubescent, right, to cantor in pairs because the vocal mechanism just isn't as strong at that point. And maybe if it is, it's not a character you want to to put out there. So work with that. And as you're doing this, there are little things. And so what? This is the responsibility. Do you remember where this goes? Oh yes, it goes here. Or this is the Mysterium Fidei Memorial Convention, whatever. It is here, and so on. Because the other thing is, as a musician, you probably don't want to be cueing them. Although it's tiresome, right? If you have outside musicians for big days or whatever, it gets difficult. So and teach them. Somebody stays with them for their life. And use the stuff that you've worked on in your rehearsals in the mass if it's appropriate. No reason to reinvent the wheel, right? All right, in your life here. So this is the important thing, taking care of yourself. And this is why I wanted to talk so much about economization of things too, is you can't be help to people if you don't take care of yourself, so, right? We have to really believe and understand and realize totally that this music is so much bigger than us, liturgical music, sacred music, especially the text of scripture. This could be the thing that gets someone to heaven, right? Eternal happiness with God, united with their family and friends. Um, that's something, right? Build a program with this stuff, right? It's a wonderful thing. Those of you that have schools in your parish, these are such a gift because you can start these kids, and those of us that, if you don't have a children's choir, start one if you can. Those kids will come back, and even if they don't for life, they'll remember that and take it with them. They'll be evangelists of this wonderful thing to the whole world. And try to stay in touch with them as you can. I'm saying this as much to myself as I am to you. I'm a horrible communicator with my friends, my family, everybody. But if I have that, sort of thought during the day to send something to me, I try to do that because I really feel often that that's at a time when someone needs to hear that from us, right? And so try to do that, and they see that they weren't just a musical one body because they happen to be able to sing a high G. They were part of your thoughts. So help them see choir as a family. Of course, in adult choir, we talk about this often. If there's any disagreements in my choir, I say, that's one of the things in Europe. They all go out to have a drink after rehearsal, right? Because you don't want to say anything in rehearsal to people that you've got to go see afterwards in a pub. So it's different, of course, with children and schools. But the point is that that is a family in a way, just like this is a family, right? If this is part of their rhythm of life, then they will come to that. They will enjoy that. They will love that, and see it as part of themselves that they need to continue. Okay, last thing on us, right? We have to commit to practice, going to concerts, listening to music, right? To help ourselves understand things. I don't listen to a lot of music. I like silence a lot, but if I am, I'm listening to a lot of different things. Chant recordings to me are always I'm a little bit too much in the job for that. But as a kid, I played guitar a lot, um, and mostly roots and blues kind of music. I still love that, and so on. But expose yourself to all of that because skills you learn there. So many things I learned. My high school band director and choir teacher, Mr. Thrush, merciless with the rhythm section and jazz band. But it's helpful when I'm sight reading rhythms and Renaissance music. I see the same kind of stuff. When I'm improvising, I use some of that. Get at all this music because, the church sets forth styles as an example, but any music you do is going to improve your musicianship, I think, right? And if you can, join an ensemble of some sort, or even just like if you play with friends, go sing together, or, whatever, meet at someone's house and have dinner and do whatever. It's important to do that. I sing in a tutor polyphony group here in town that's huge for me. There's like half of us that are directors, and it's great to have another director directing us because it makes us think about ourselves. And when we start to like throw some shade, it's like, no, I mean, we're all friends, so it's different. But you don't want to get teacher chops. I remember that from undergrad. We used to, oh, that person did. Oh, yeah, they had teacher chops. You can tell they used to be good. It's like kind of like us. Like I used to be like 20 pounds lighter, whatever. I was in better shape then. Could run a lot more, a lot faster. Make them, help your kids to understand that not in a heavy-handed way, you're authoritative with this, that you could play that run, that you're asking them to do, or saying, why have you practiced this? Very important. Be brave. This is salvific work that you're doing. That's one of course, the big reasons to teach in a Catholic school is that we realize we're in something much bigger that is directly related to our Creator. So, and here's all my credits and all of that jazz. So, anyhow, I'll make this shareable in a link and as a PDF and as the PowerPoint if you would like. And anyhow, thank you for your time today. I'm very aware as we do these sort of things that we're all, in this together. We're all trying to get to heaven and so on. And so I'm again very honored at the opportunity to do this webinar today. Okay.
Thank you, Bruce. At this point, if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or in the Q&A window. Let's see. Okay, the first one we've got here is to use these techniques. How would you divide up the grade levels in an after-school choir program, grades 4 through 8?
Yeah, I mean, I think it varies for the particular place. I have to say, if you have the luxury of dividing it up more than that, you're doing better than a lot of us. Because I never have, and it was always something that I wanted. Um, it's so hard with such a broad age range. Middle schoolers in there. The worst is when sometimes some people have like second through eighth. I don't even know how you do that. So think about that. And, I think what you want to do probably in that case is like either 4, 5, and 1, and 6, 7, 8. I mean, of course, there are graded choir things that you can use. I see in the comments someone's saying award method is another thing too, but RSCM has its thing. Um, for me, I find in ours, since it's mixed into a group, we sort of have a like informal kind of mentoring thing where we try to pair them up and so on. That seems to work for me. But yeah, I would probably divide the younger, the fourth and fifth. Um, and again, the models like in RSCM and Ward and all that, are you have to pass an achievement to get to that point. Again, I've never had the opportunity. We are a commuter parish here in Birmingham, which is unfortunate because it's hard to get people to stay committed with it.
Next question is, do you ever use the word method for chant?
So I have a lot of word materials from someone who went to CUA with Father Scaris back in the 80s, I guess. Um, I don't, I kind of use a more homegrown thing, but that's to say, if you want or are interested in word method, like the fact that you asked that question, if you don't already do it, you probably should go find out how, because it's great. And there's a CMA thing they did years ago from Wilco Brouwers in the Netherlands, um, called Words with Wings. That's kind of like a diet version of that. If you can't go and take a workshop, the biggest barrier for word method is being able to go take classes because you have to go to the site. I know that's an obstacle for some people, but it's wonderful. I don't use the classical slim method with my chant, but um, it's great, and I think it's a wonderful. To me, it's much like I was in a great music upper, and we learned Orff, Kodai, and Dalcroze all they were more Orff people in my school, but they taught all three. It was so cool because you got to experience all three and find, all of one of them suits all of us best, and Ward might be that for you.
There are a number of questions about specific repertoire for changing male voices. A pretty common question.
That's a hard one. So just because I have to say, in uh, here, because we do a lot of congregational chant, we do a lot of Gregorian chant, ordinaries and stuff like that. We just do a lot of chant, and I kind of bring the kids up that way. It was embarrassing one year actually because the kids I realized could read the Neumes fine, but they couldn't read modern, and that was like a oh no fail moment for me. Um, I honestly, if you want examples of the great repertoire, the Pueri stuff is great. It's cool. There's some easy pieces. There's some more difficult ones like that I think are great. Um, and if you look at some of the publishers, they do grade them in that way too. But you could even, I mean, the other thing is if you don't have the finances to be able to do that sort of thing, you can even do a hymn with a descant, that kind of stuff, and have look at the many creative solutions that you can do to make that
When do you train your canners? After school or weekends?
So in my current job, we there's a preference for professional canners on the part of the pastor. Um, we we don't do that with kids. That's not my decision. On the other hand, like I said, we don't have a school. If I was in a parish with a school, I would 100% try to get them doing Sunday weekend masses, right? And so for those, I guess you could do them on the weekends. We had at St. Gabe's, we had planning periods and kind of stuff like that where the teachers were willing. That's what I mean about the making friends thing. The religion teachers and people like that. If they would offer that as an incentive, hey, if you get your work done, you can go practice the canon music, and that was huge because we could do that. Of course, I'd tell them to show up at 7:40 in the morning or whatever, but all of us that are parents, we know how that is some days. And that can't be your only time, or at least not. That's a time to reinforce. I'm about to go tonight and coach a soccer game. I mean, it's the same thing with that. I want them to learn stuff and practice, and then get early to the game so we can recover the because it's all retention stuff just for them, like it is for us.
This is probably a multi-part question or complex answer, but what are some common pitfalls for new directors or common issues you see when new directors inherit existing programs? What are some failures or mistakes that you learned from doing the job?
Hmm. Well, I have to say I've been very fortunate. Everywhere I've been um, has been I've followed good people that were decent people that worked well and were good musicians. Um, and I have to say, so my first half-time job is 22 hours a week was as an undergraduate. I got it at age 17. And I probably ticked so many people off in that job that I had all worked out by the time I got my first full-time job. I'd made those mistakes. And they were very patient with me, thankfully, in that first job. And I didn't have a lot of kids' responsibilities there. In my first school job, like I say, I think I really did that well. I think the worst thing you can do is uh, malign your predecessor. Um, I am always thankful to the people that I followed. Uh, in St. Louis at St. Gabriel, my predecessors in a long string of musicians did wonderful work, and so which is great because I'm not a builder person. I'm more of a tweaker person. We all know we're different with that. Um, and it was easy to get in there and make things work. Uh, I probably fought some repertoire stuff too hard at the beginning, but that was because the person that advised the job search didn't really give me an accurate picture of where the school was. And so I came in there in August thinking they were here because he told me that. And then they really were over here. And of course, I didn't bear him any goodwill or any ill because he was trying to move things that way. But that was tough. And so I lost a lot of trust from people and had to rebuild that. Um, Here in Birmingham, I follow a wonderful musician who's he would tell you is a little bit of a curmudgeon. So I tried to be as pastoral as possible, and so things have been fairly smooth. I think there's been stuff. I'm organizationally not great. That's another thing. If you can work on your organization, that's ideal. It's part of the economization thing I talked about, but also parents appreciate. I appreciate that more now with 4 children. We need to get people information.
We had a couple questions about festivals that Puericultores hosts, and I'm going to drop the link to their website in the chat here. And I saw that on their site that they already have information about the 2022 and upcoming festivals that are.
Yeah.
You can check out their website for information on that. I will also include that in the email I send out with the link to the webinar recording tomorrow.
There's some on the Query site today too. I'll interrupt briefly. There's a great video, for example, Richard Clark, my friend in Boston, who is was when he was doing a festival up there not too long ago. So it's cool to see things like that. I have great memories of the things that John or Mary organized in St. Louis and all. Um, And those, I want to interject quickly too. Those festivals, I'm so glad people are excited about that. I was in all state 3 of my 4 years in high school in West Virginia. The first year was Moses Hogan, and that was a transformative choral experience for me, especially, of course, he died like 2 years after that festival. But of course, we expect him to be this nice, friendly guy to let us sing spirituals all the time. He was so hard on us with Baroque repertoire. I mean, he was just uncompromising. And that was a great lesson to learn. The spiritual guy is not always going to be about spirituals. The chant guy is not. He knew how to do all music. So these festivals, I feel Pueri does that well.
Could you describe your choral Stations of the Cross?
Yeah. So they're done sometimes in a way that there would be a choral meditation after every station. I'm very much of the opinion that devotions should be modest in length. Um, Divine Mercy Chapel is like 7 minutes, right? If you pray it without music. Um, but even if you do um, like stations, we intersperse. We do the traditional, the da, 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 not the real Stabat Mater, but the hymn version for like half of them. And in our church, they're set up so we've got 7 on the side. So between 7 and 8, we do something longer. Um, Not long, but like 2 minutes, maybe 2.5. I think like we did, I don't remember what it was this year. And then after the crucifixion station, we do I think we did an area of Christus Factus says. But you want to focus those particular ones toward the devotion, of what the not the mystery, but what that particular station of the cross is considering. And then maybe at the end, it's like a choral postlude. You can do something. I think it's a good. It's also good for us to think how can we economize things. We often split up a motet too. If it's 3 minutes long, there are obvious sections of it or of an anthem. We'll do like a minute at a time or less. I think the goal is to make it manageable for people and for them to think this was a great experience, not like, oh my gosh, the fish fries in 5 minutes. Why are we still here listening to this? So get creative about that. The other thing is the starting and stopping is helpful for rehearsal stuff because then you can catch places where maybe people have a hard time coming back in or coming in rehearsing.
I just wanted to mention us. Paul French dropped in the Q&A, and I have now put it in the chat. The Pueri Cantoris schedule is just getting set now, and new festivals are being planned in Milwaukee, San Francisco, San Antonio. So even if you don't see your city listed, the list won't be finalized until the end of May. So just so everyone knows that and can be aware if they're planning to be involved in those festivals. Okay, there was one other question here. Oh no. My after school, is this the right one? Oh, no. Creating interest in joining choir. I'm not in a school, but have maintained a small teen schola through the pandemic. Younger children's choir will be starting from scratch for the first time in many years.
Yeah, so I think the thing is if you know young families in your parish or wherever you're working, might just mention it to them. If you're in a church situation like we are here, people will often ask about when is my kid old enough to do this or whatever. But if you don't have that luxury, whatever, you could just do some kind of free sing kind of thing, or if you do something in the liturgy, of course, it depends on how indulgent the clergy want to be with it, but you could have just an open sing kind of, it's like summer choir kind of stuff people do. If they take off choir takes off during the summer, okay, we're going to sing for the 10 o'clock mass, we meet at 9, whatever happens, happens, that sort of thing. But also, I would put it out there as, people want good things for their children. Remind them that this will help them to do this. Or, maybe their kid that tried to take piano for a year and they hated it, but they really wanted them to love it. Maybe a choir is an easier way. They can have some friends. The big thing is getting like a core group of people that will do it. And if you've maintained a teen school through the pandemic, you probably know how to do that, because I feel like none of us were able to maintain anything through the pandemic except by force of will. Um, Also, we always do like a, what do you call it? Pizza party at the end of the year, promise them pizza. If you're able, and then maybe this wouldn't be your first year, we always charge a minimal amount for school here. And we're not, again, a territorial parish so much. You know, we get people from drive-bys, drive-past parishes to come to us. I find that that helps keep parents involved, because we didn't do it for a few years and the attendance was terrible. And it wasn't because the stuff was any different. It's just because people got fatigued driving in. And so that was helpful. Uh, the one thing that was tough for me the last few years, because of attendance and different things, was I did not have them sing at Mass enough, because I was worried about the quality of the product. I would not worry about that as much. Sometimes you'll get pressure from various people, clergy or whoever, to do that. And we kind of internalized that a little bit too much. And I did for a while, and that was not good. And then, again, it was stuff that was, it was just a mistake. Don't do that. Have them sing. Also, if you can do like a little school, choir camp, school camp, whatever, in this late summer, that's a great thing to do, because some people may not want to commit for a season. But if it's like a Saturday or Friday night, Saturday morning, whatever, sing for the anticipated Mass, they'll go for that. And then they'll see how happy the kids are, and they'll sign them up. We were able to do that for the last few years before the pandemic, and that was huge. And it'll get you people that can't really, aren't a part of the parish too, which is, of course, a huge thing.
Well, I think we're just about out of time. Thank you, Bruce, for your presentation. Very informative. And thank all of you who have attended. We had a really great number of people attending and participation today. If you'd like to find out about future webinars, you can go to our website, ncea.org/webinars. And as I said at the beginning of the presentation, I will send out tomorrow a link to the recording as well as a survey. Go ahead and fill that out, and you can get a certificate of completion or a certificate of attendance emailed to you if you fill out the survey. And also, I will include the PDF version of the presentation slides from today.
And
thanks again. And
if people are able to see it in the comm box, I'm going to include.
Oh, you're sending the link over
for the PowerPoint too, in case it's
okay.
too for people. So sorry, I meant to have that queued up and forgot all about it. So.
Okay, there it is.
There it is for both. The first one is for the PowerPoint. The second is, I believe, the PDFs.
Okay. Thanks very much, everyone, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Have a blessed day.
Take care.
Bye.